Or
Hey, how are you, Elysia?
good. Hi, David.
Lovely to have you. This is literally so exciting. I'm so glad we could finally do it. I gotta
Yeah.
say before we start that I'm drinking the Iris Estate Illumination.
Wow. I see that you really like the coffee. That's nice.
You guys really knocked it out of the park, quite honestly.
Oh, thank you. Well, compliments to the roaster. I'll let him know.
All right. Well, how's your day going real quick?
So far, so good. I'm still in the roastery right now. I'm still doing some desk work. So, yeah.
At the end of the day, are you back in at least are you back in Singapore at least?
Yes, I'm in Singapore for like another week. I'll be flying out again to China for a coffee festival. So, yeah.
All right. Man, always on the go. That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, thanks so much for kind of doing this. And, I kind of mentioned we do this kind of for our subscribers and just like YouTube and everything and or whatnot. And so just wonderful to have someone like you to ask questions, get to know you, all the above. Yeah. So, kind of just to, start, I kind of presume you grew up in Singapore. Is that correct?
Yes, I did like since birth all the way to now. I grew up in Singapore. But also really because of coffee, I get to travel around pretty often.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So this is just a random offshoot, but I have
Yeah.
heard Singapore's airport is like the most beautiful airport in the world. Is that
Yes, I got to
true?
honestly I got to agree. I mean, like, although I haven't get to go to many different cities yet, but I've been to a few. I have to say
Mhm.
that I'm really proud of our airport.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of entertainment as well, a lot of food, a lot of shopping. Um, it's kind of like surprising when I go because Changi Airport is the one that I always go to. So when I've been to other airports, I thought all airports are almost the same. You get entertainment, you get shopping, you get food and everything. So apparently not. So yeah, it was only I get to travel, then I realized that wow, our airport is really truly amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I That's so funny that you thought it was regular. But no, that makes sense. I've only seen pictures and it just it looks quite gorgeous, I'm not gonna lie. I love it. So, kind of give us the lore and background of kind of how you got into coffee, and how you kind of ended up starting Homeground. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess for me, having my own cafe or my own space was also was my dream since young. When I was like 13 or 14, all I wanted to do was like, have a safe space for people to have conversation, a comfortable space. That was all I had in mind. And then from what I know back then in the cafe, coffee is something essential or not, you also need to provide some dessert, things like that. So that's why I got myself into a coffee part-time. And then I was also baking at home. So I was like trying out different stuff. Hopefully I'll be able to have my own cafe in the future.
Wow.
So as I was doing a lot of part-time at a cafe, it's called Cafe Crema. It was a non-specialty place. Then one day I happened to come across this thing called like the drip coffee. I saw how the Japanese does the drip coffee. I was like, oh, you can make coffee that way too, not only through an espresso machine.
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of like, okay, maybe I should pick that up too. And when I did that, it was in this cafe place called All Specialty Coffee. So that was the first time I kind of got exposed to specialty when I learned that there are so many different countries that I've not heard about that grows coffee. Like honestly, I'm very bad at my geography. I've not heard about Ethiopia. I've not heard about Guatemala. It was only because of coffee
Yeah.
that's how I kind of got to know about it. And then all the funny names like Jaeger, everything seems so foreign and like frightening at the beginning. and what's brew ratio, why do you need to use a weighing scale. So everything was new. But also because of this, I find it really fascinating. That's why I kind of got more into coffee than before. But honestly, like many others, at the very beginning, I was drawn by the latte art. Like I was drawn into it because of latte art. How
Mm,
can you do latte art on a coffee? It's fun, da da da. But eventually, I guess as I learn more about coffee, it's always the tasting experience that makes it different, or that makes me want to stay in this coffee industry. And when I stepped into specialty coffee, that was the very initial stage when everyone just started owning their shots. At the previously it was like there's a God shot, the tiger stripes. You need to look at the espresso,
yeah,
30 ml, 30 seconds, things like that.
yeah,
So yeah, I was pretty lucky. I got to go through that phase.
yeah.
So I kind of like know both. And you used to distribute your coffee like this before you have
Yeah,
OCD. Yeah, so this is a
yeah.
skill that many new baristas don't get.
That's correct. That's not a thing anymore for the most part.
So
Oh,
yeah, and then I guess
yeah,
um and then I think 1 or 2 years into it, I got introduced to like things like EK43. You have your temperature control kettle. Back then was the Bruno from Hario, things like that.
yeah,
So yeah, and I think, or I would like to think, why I'm still doing coffee up to today is because like what I learned today can be wrong tomorrow. Like there's always a learning curve for coffee, and there's always something new to explore. Or what we learn today might be wrong tomorrow. So there's no
yeah,
100% or like do things, which I guess is what makes it fun and interesting for me. So yeah, that's kind of like a briefly how I got into like coffee.
yeah. Well, there was a couple interesting things you mentioned in there. Number one, kind of a neat thing that you had kind of thought about opening up a food truck. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, in your dream world, do you like what would that look like? Just, you know?
So yeah, I guess it's like you really never know where like your dream or how it kind of like take you to. Like I've never imagined like me doing this, running my own business, like Homeground at this point of time. Like never. I was never picturing myself being a my own boss and entrepreneur, running things. Like no. And the funny thing is, I did my diploma was a hotel and hospitality, and I did my internship in a hotel in the F&B and housekeeping department. And I told myself when I graduate in the near future, I'm not gonna do anything related to hospitality. But guess what? My first full time is a barista job.
Yeah.
so so just don't speak too soon.
Well, I love that you're putting it to use, that's that's kind
Yeah,
of
I'm kind of like the rare few that still stays in the same industry. At least that's what my lecturer told me.
yeah, yeah. Well, kind of going back to another thing you said that was kind of neat is going through that phase of I don't know, being introduced to specialty coffee. It's exciting world, and so I feel it just kind of goes back to like the name of your company to an extent of just I don't know, bringing things to the home and just the excitement of on all of your bags you have recipes, so you're very much trying to make everything pretty accessible to the public, and so that's kind of neat that I don't know, I mean, I guess we all get to experience that phase of getting
Mm.
excited and learning about new stuff, but I don't know, I think that's kind of neat that it just I don't know, it represents kind of uh, I don't know, you guys very well in regards to your name.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess like I would consider myself pretty fortunate at the same time because I go through the phase of like, knowing nothing, and then eventually I slowly absorb everything. So when we set up Homeground, the whole idea, I think our experience helped us a lot because we will remind ourselves very often that like specialty coffee can be pretty intimidating sometimes because of the information that it's available out there. Um, Although I think being accessible in this case can be quite overwhelming when there's so much information overloading on the consumer.
Yeah.
So, which is why we want to make it easy for people to accept or to enjoy specialty coffee. yes, there is a lot of technology knowledge and things like that going on at the behind the scene, and they should be credited, but we should also acknowledge the effort. But sometimes I think the first step, or rather what Homeground wants to do, is to make it easy and to help them to see the value in the coffee itself. And I think that takes time. It's not something that we can do right away based on the first time we meet them, or like the second time we meet them. It takes a few tries, or like some time to build the trust between you and the consumer. And that also teach me, like, over the years, I think the power of storytelling helps a lot, to be able to communicate a message to your consumer. Why are they paying this amount of money for this cup of coffee? Why is it so different? I'm sure one of the most asked question we always get in the cafe or in coffee business: why is your coffee so expensive? Why is it $20 a cup? Or like, why is your coffee sour? Why does it not taste like coffee? So I guess it really takes time for someone to see and appreciate the craft. And only when someone appreciates something, then they will be willing to pay for it. They see the value in it. So I guess that's what Homeground want to do. And we believe that, like, to make the coffee industry sustainable is to get more people to appreciate. By doing so, to have people to brew coffee at home, which is why we name ourselves Homeground. And this kind of like help us guide how we want to run our business, or how we make certain business decision. For example, like our bag size, it can be small, like 100 grams or 125 grams. Why their brewing recipe, why we want to hide all the information, but just the tasting notes, things like that. So yeah, it kind of decide like how we want to function or operate. So yeah,
Mhm.
so that's Homeground.
Yeah. No, I love that you also included the reason why you named it Homeground, because I think that really is so special, and just kind of what you mentioned previously is just bringing you know just more coffee, or not more coffee into the home, but allowing the home brewers to brew more and not overload them with information is just that's just a wonderful way of going about it, in giving easy steps, kind of just how anytime anyone's changing a recipe and trying to make the coffee better, it's change one variable at a time is always the easiest. And so I think it's neat that you're working with few variables as just like who Homeground is, and it's just very clear, like no one I presume no one can look at Homeground and be like, I don't know what they stand for, you know what I mean? No, yeah, if that makes any sense. But yeah, so
Yeah.
briefly, I actually don't also even know. I believe you co-founded Homeground um,
Yeah.
with someone else. I actually don't even know who
Yes.
that person is. If you,
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So there's two of us. That his name is Homing. So he's the roaster. So basically, when we started the business, he does all the roasting. I think up to now he still does the roasting, but we also have another roaster. So there's two of them. So he kind of like oversee the green buying. He curates the offering that we have at Homeground. Of course, the quality control through like cupping and things like that. And back then when we have our cafe, the training and such. So yeah, he's currently not with me. He's heading out for F1 because F1 is happening right now in Singapore.
all right.
So yeah. Yes. So basically you can see that homing him, he's the product guy. He's the hands-on guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
He's the
wonderful.
one that I guess his roasting philosophy, it's always about making a coffee easy to brew. Basically what he wants to do is literally our consumer or our customers, they don't have to think. All you need to do is just to pour water. The room for error, it's, I would say, very small. Like you really, like, even if today you accidentally put in another 20 grams of water, or you go a little bit too fine, the coffee will still turn out to be decent. So that's how he wants to roast his coffee. It shouldn't be something that is so unique and challenging that it challenged the brewing skill of the customers, where there's no room for error. Like, it can, that's not what he wants. So literally a good coffee, what we always joke about, all you need to do is just to pour water. It can't go wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's how he wants his coffee to be like.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think I had mentioned this to you also. You're the first roastery. You may actually be the first roastery in years, or I don't remember, that roasts on a Gießen that we're working with.
Oh,
But
oh, okay.
I don't remember if I mentioned that to you, but it's so interesting, and I am kind of wondering, did you guys happen to like seek out a Gießen, or did it, just kind of fall into place? Like, because you're doing such a good job with it. Like, I just think that's kind of neat. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I would say it's kind of like it fall into place. So a few reasons. When he was working at his previous workplace, called Pakamara Coffee in Singapore, they were using a Gießen. And then of course he was exposed to a few other like pro bet because we did a few co-roasting project with other coffee companies. So I guess eventually he still like how Gießen functions. So when we have our own place, Homeground, we still go back to Gießen. So yes.
Well, it's wonderful. Yeah. To be honest, again, we're not roasters, but that was kind of something that was interesting. I think that all of the roasters that we like work with on like a somewhat consistent basis, I think they all have different roasters randomly. And so it was just funny to find another roaster that just had a roaster we hadn't
Mm.
really worked with. So I just thought that was kind of neat. And I don't know too much, about roasting, but
Oh,
I thought it was kind of unique and very interesting. But yeah, kind of
yeah.
before asking more questions and getting to know you, I'd love to talk about all these amazing coffees that we got to
Mm,
use for the subscription. Um, yeah, so kind of starting with the kind of two approachable ones that we decided to use, the Colombia El Salado and the Brazil
mm.
Santa Monica. Let's start with the Colombia, and kind of briefly, could you tell me just a wee bit of I don't know, maybe how you got a hold of this producer, or just how you got a hold of this coffee, so to speak. And yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. I
Oh,
really
thank
quick have to
you.
say how wonderful it was. Like my
Thank
tasting notes just for funsies were, kind of like a Bosch pear, like cane sugar sweetness, walnut, that honey sweetness very much came through on the bag, apricot. I threw in there red grape as well as like the blackberry. It was just very enjoyable. I think the mouthfeel was kind of juicy. It was just
you.
honestly for like a Colombia, I was just super happy with it because I mean, I don't know about you these days, but we kind of at this point we're getting all these crazy Colombias.
Yes.
Yeah, that it was very nice to get such a pleasant, wonderful cup of coffee that,
Oh, thank
it is not
you.
remarkably expensive. And yeah, yeah. So, tell me just a wee bit, if you're able to, just about this coffee. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So wow, this one, then I have to say the credit goes to Homie because he was the one who come across this coffee. And I think one thing you mentioned that I want to share. It's about Colombian coffees. Because like I think just recently I've been asked twice, like, what's your favorite origin? Honestly, I don't have, but if I can only drink one last origin, there's only one origin that I can drink for the rest of my life. I will have to choose Colombia. Because I think the beauty about Colombia coffee is it can be so wild, like your tropical fruits, funky. It can be berries like, it can be chocolatey, nutty, or it could be like this El Salvador right here, which is a very elegant cup. And I would say it's a coffee that is great for your first coffee in the morning. So like at home ground, we like to share our coffee more closely related to like the time of the day. Like I would imagine this coffee to be the first cup because how gentle it is and how easy for you to digest and etc. in the morning. Like in contrast, we don't want something that's too funky in the morning that's like slaps you on your palate when you wake up. So I would say this is a good coffee to start with. So yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
kind of like whenever we curate our option, we will always want to choose something that fits in the day. The first cup, we also want to choose something that is slightly on the heavier side, which is great after lunch. So that's how like we kind of like curate our options
Yeah.
for our coffee. Because once again, it's also back to the consumer. So when people comes to our store, they ask, oh, what's your best seller? Or like what would you recommend? So we always start with like, okay, if it's in the lunchtime, we'll ask, have you had your lunch? If you have not, maybe we can do something light. Or if we are having a dessert, it's during tea time, then okay, why not? We have something heavier that can pair with your dessert, things like that. Or if it's you already had 2 cups of coffee, it's already too much, then maybe you want to have something light or something heavy. So it really depends on like them. Then we have to make recommendation rather than telling them that like, okay, this is the best seller, this is selling very well. It's always about helping them to get to what they want and what they need rather than like what's the best seller. Especially when because Homeground, we always change our coffee offerings, or rather we have 2 to 3 different new coffees each month. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a wonderful way of putting it. And to be quite honest, I think this is the first time I've heard that, where you kind of go off of, yeah, like the heaviness or lightness or lunchtime or morning. That's something I've actually never thought about. But in regards to kind of, yeah, the funky and versus the more like elegant toned down, that is something that, yeah, we'll kind of talk through with our customers when they also ask for like, what bag do we get today? And it's like, well, like, are you looking for something crazy or like something just enjoyable, so to speak? But one thing I enjoyed about this coffee, which I just thought was neat, was it was also part of a tabby. Very
Yes.
interesting. You know, Katoras love them. They're just kind of a good standard, but we don't have, or I feel like it's harder to come by tabbies that we have found very tasty, whether blended
Oh.
together and or on their own as a single variety. And so that was actually super noteworthy. At least personally for me, that's just always keeping tabs on everything, so to speak. And so that was kind of neat. Yeah, just
Oh,
very neat little thing there.
that's nice.
Yeah. Anyway, kind of moving on to the that's a little afterthought. Um, you gotta tell me about the Santa Monica.
Oh.
I think it's the best Brazil I had, you know, maybe ever.
Oh,
It was just
wow.
it was
Okay.
just so
Thank
tasty.
you.
Yeah, just yeah,
Right.
just tell us a little bit about it. I was so happy.
Mm. So I guess like for this particular Santa Monica, we bought it because of how it tastes like. Because it's so fruit forward. It's very unlike the stereotype that we all have for Brazilian coffee, or rather, yes, for most coffee professionals, we already knew that Brazil can be fruity sometimes. But I think for most consumers, it's still something very different. So we intentionally picked this is because we wanted to use a coffee like such to share with people that like you can no longer use the origin to justify the flavor profile. Coffee has improved so much at the farm level, whether is it on the processing or how they cultivate or how they take care of the stuff at the farm level. It has changes a lot of things over the years. So you shouldn't be buying coffee based on the origin, but buy coffee based on the flavor profile. So I think Santa Monica is an excellent example in this case, which is why we like to buy coffees like this because it kind of like, it's a good way of I wouldn't okay, maybe educating is a very strong word, but like it's a good way of sharing information with consumer in a very comfortable way, I would say, which is why when we tasted this on the company, I was like, this is a good Brazil. It's fruity, but not too crazy. Still something acceptable. So that's why we got the Santa Monica. So how we curate our option, or rather our coffee offering, it really one was the first one that you asked. Sometimes it's about like which part of the day does it fit, or how are you feeling today, the kind of coffee. And another one, sometimes you also want to slowly slide in some coffee information or things that we want to share with our customers. So yeah.
Yeah, it literally was such a tasty coffee. This was like I don't know. I was genuinely so happy, and actually, so we got a few bags kind of for the shop. I'm not gonna lie, I very much was just like part of me was like I wish that there was enough, and or I could have just also gotten it for the cafe because it was just so good. And yeah, quite honestly, we don't get too many Brazils, and we've had a few good ones, probably in the last 2 to 3-ish months or so. But this one, it really knocked it out of the park. And so, yeah, I definitely going to be on the lookout for Santa Monica. And just, man, yeah, The tasting notes were spot on.
Oh.
Y'all wrote down passion fruit, cranberry, kiwi, Ceylon tea, and it was just so delicious. Like I even threw in there raisin and cardamom, and it was so good.
Oh, thank
Man,
you.
that is a coffee that also just real quick, I could drink all the time because
Mhm.
it was both very comforting, a great morning, but it was I don't know, there was like a lot going on so that in the afternoon, if I wanted something that was still like complex, still like intrigued me, so to speak, it did that. And it was just absolutely wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, just such a huge fan. Let's go.
Yeah, maybe like this coffee could be great after lunch. After you have like a heavy lunch going to food coma, you need something to wake you up. Maybe this is a good coffee, like, hey, wake up, time to work.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a very good example. It was amazing. I'm dying. But yeah, yeah. Moving on to the Kenya, it was such a good one. The tattoo that we had, it was absolutely delicious. And I don't remember if I had mentioned this to you, but as the person who I thankfully I have the job description of kind of curating our coffee selection. I'm not a big fan of savory Kenyas.
Mhm.
And this was just perfect. It was just absolutely again, you know, whenever we work with a roastery who your tasting notes are exactly what we taste, it's like we know like this is a good roastery, like you're doing you're doing an excellent job. And it was the exact same with this coffee. Just everything was on there. I think I threw in there hibiscus, but all
Mhm.
your tasting notes: raspberry jam, strawberry, mandarin orange, and it was just super pleasant. For me personally, it was kind of a little bit like lovely sour cherry.
Mhm. Oh.
It was just absolutely lovely, and it was very clean acidity, and it was just very enjoyable. So, yeah, kind of, again, same thing. Just tell me just a wee bit about this Kenya, or even Kenyas that you've worked with in the past, and maybe what makes this one special. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like when I just joined in like the specialty coffee industry, like Kenya was my first love. But then I think into it for a few years, Kenya was really just doing pretty just okay. You start to get this particular taste note like tomatoes, like cherry tomatoes. Sometimes not so pleasant, a bit like herbal, grassy. Like I kind of like, get a not so pleasant kind of notes from Kenya. So we kind of like stood away from Kenya for quite some time. But I think in the recent year, it kind of like got better, like how it used to be, where you get a lot of like black currant, grapes kind of notes, juicy, vibrant, like how Kenya should always taste like Kenya kind of thing.
Yeah.
So when we came across this tattoo, which it's also something interesting because Kenya usually only have wash process, but this one was a natural process.
Yeah.
So I guess it kind of like give the body a little boost to support the kind of vibrancy notes that Kenya usually has to offer, which makes it, I would say, a very well-rounded cup of coffee. So I guess this is the beauty about this particular natural process, Kenya. You have the tasting notes or the characteristics of what a usually Kenya would have, but with the boost of the body, it becomes a bit more like jammy, a little bit richer. So yeah, I guess this is Tatu for you.
Yeah, that's actually a great way of putting it. And to be honest, what you had said earlier about, ame roasting in such a way that there's no room for error, so to speak, I found that so accurate with this Kenya because I think I ended up brewing this one, I think about three-ish times, and each time it was so good, but it was either like more juicy and like a little bit more of that body and jamminess, but then if like I was a little bit coarser, it like brought out the acidity and just like light citrus tones, and it was like in all three ways that I brewed it, I loved it. It was kind of neat to be able to see that. Yeah, yeah, so I thought that was really
Nice.
yeah.
Homie would be very happy to hear this.
You should tell him. Yeah, I'm done. And lastly, we gotta talk about this Sarah's rule. It was insane. It
Whoa,
was
yes.
holy moly. Um, I I gotta, I guess, before asking you, about this and how you got this, and
Mhm.
obviously you know everything about Sarah Azul and CGLE, but we had, let's see, about a month or so ago, we got a shipment from Knockbox, and that
Ah,
was kind of one of our first times really showcasing Sarah Azul and CGLE, and using a green tip geisha, and it was their hybrid washed, and the customers were like, "This is insane," and so. I remember when kind of the time came for me to start, looking at your offerings to see what we could, use. And I saw and I saw this and I was like, it's clear. Get this. This is gonna be insane. And man, was it. It is so complex. Oh my good gracious. Like I was in love with his coffee, like very
Mm,
much so. But yeah, for those, in the subscription or who happen to be watching this video, who maybe don't know too much about CGLE and their farms and the Herrera family, maybe kind of give a brief kind of rundown of just how amazing they are. Yeah, yeah.
okay, I'll try to make it short and sweet because honestly, when it comes to Cafe Granha, I have so much to talk about and so much to share. So maybe I think we should first start with the name because it tells us so much about the producer Rigoberto. So Rigoberto is a very warm uncle, I would say. He speaks no English, only Spanish. The first time I met him was in Boston. I remember so clearly that he just held my hand because I was using their coffee for competition. So he was holding my hand, speaking to me, communicating to me in Spanish, and I just go like, I don't understand anything. But he just kept going on and on and on. I was like, and he was speaking with so much passion and so much love. And every time, even up to today, I meet him, it's still the same. So whether I understand Spanish or not, he would just goes on. Hopefully, I have a translator next to him or next to me. So yeah. All I know in a few Spanish word that I know, it's La Esperanza, of course. It means hope.
Mhm.
And then, of course, I think coming to the name Serra Azul, the name of the farm, it means like the coffee valley, the valley, as well as blue. So why blue and why the valley is because this farm is next to a valley. And Rigoberto himself, he believed that the farm is like really so high up and so close to the blue sky. So
Mhm.
that's why the name Serazu. So you can see that he's not only a very warm and friendly uncle, but he's also a romantic uncle.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
that
why
yeah.
he named the farm. Yeah,
He's
that's why he named the farm like Sarah Azu. And Sarah Azu, they only grow geisha because of the climate condition is great for geisha. So they only focus on this particular varietal and process in many different ways. And the one that you guys are having is honey. They also have them in hybrid wash as well as natural. So why we particularly picked this honey lot was because the sweetness is insanely high. It's like the moment you open the bag, it's like you already smell like I don't know, it's like a bag of like a can of jam, a
yeah.
jar of jam. And then like it's so fruity and sweet. It really kind of like already capture or like put a smile on your face before even drinking the coffee. So I guess this is Sarah Azul for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a perfect way of putting it. It was so sweet. It was so floral. It was, oh man. Yeah, when seeing, I think you guys had a purple-ish kind of tab for it.
Yeah.
Like the perfect color. I don't know why, but just like I was like, it is purple. Like it's like
Yes, it's purple, like everything purple.
yeah, it was remarkably complex. Like again, all of your tasting notes were spot on. Like I think I even threw in there like blueberry, orchid florals as well, like pomegranate, just red plum, just super sweet. Like oh my good
Yes.
gracious, I 100% was in love with this coffee, and I have to say of all the coffees we've used for our subscription, this is probably one of the better ones. And to be quite honest,
Oh, thank
yeah,
you.
no, we had I think about three or four. I don't remember how many. It was between three and five subscribers who did reach out to me and said these are the best coffees we've had for the subscription yet. That's
Oh my God, thank
which
you.
is amazing. And man, it was just absolutely tasty. And yeah, a huge fan of Rigoberto and Sarah Azul, and so I thought that was just super special that you guys got to have it. Actually, I think I saw y'all do a video. I think of you brewing this,
Yes,
right? Yeah,
yes,
recently,
yeah.
which is
So
really
because
sweet.
yeah, because recently I just went to Japan and we were in Kyoto. So basically we woke up at 4 a.m. We were
Whew.
in the city center of Kyoto, and then we cycled to the Arashiyama bamboo forest. So I mean, we're already there. Of course, you need good coffee, right? And we decided that, like, Sarah Azu would be the perfect coffee in this scenario. Yeah, and honestly, if Sarah Azu on a day-to-day basis in a cafe, it's a 10 out of 10. In
Yeah.
the bamboo forest early in the morning at 6 a.m., that is 100 out of 10. It tasted so good. Yeah, like everything just comes so well all together. Whether is it the atmosphere, how we brew the coffee and everything. Literally, this is a coffee that you just need to put in water. You don't need to think. It will just turn out perfect. Yeah, that's how
Yeah.
Sarazu is like. Which is why I think every single year we always will always buy coffee from Cafe Granha. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned that it is a coffee you can't mess up for the most part because it actually my first brew of it was perfect. Like it was one of those coffees where like I just didn't need to brew it again. It was like I think I've done it. Like I think it's perfect, you know. Yeah, I literally was just so happy with it, you know. For all of kind of like like subscription coffees, I'll usually dial in around like 20-ish grams in to like 300 grams
Mhm.
out, or sometimes 330 if they're like the approachable. I'll do a little bit more. And I literally this came out at like 3:30, like, and I was just like I ground it on like 11 or 12 clicks, I can't remember, and it was perfect. I literally was so happy. So that's kind of funny you mentioned that. Well, you know, this is
Yeah.
also a good time for me to say I haven't even told you this yet, but in the last shipment that you sent, you know, a couple things I think, we got your samples, and the samples were amazing. Holy moly! Um, yeah, like to be quite honest, they turned the heads of not only me but our lead baker and the assistant manager, and so all three of us were like, maybe we should work with Homeground more. Um, so just, that was kind of ridiculous, but we literally we're so happy. And so you know, probably in like a week or so, I might be reaching out to.
We have new coffees, so
We are very happy to hear. So yeah, you know, this is the coffee that you guys have curated, and just your whole approach to who you are, and bringing coffees into the home. It's very special, and you know, obviously, as a multi roaster, we work with a lot of roasters, and to be honest, I do believe that home ground is very unique, which is very very wonderful, and to be able to work with you guys and happen to find you guys, you know, I got so lucky coming across y'all. Like, could not have been happier. And oh Lord, yeah. Well, you know, kind of switching gears briefly, you know, I gotta chat a little bit and ask about, you know, kind of your competitions, and competing, and briefly for anyone who is watching or whatever, you have competed quite a bit, and you've done
Yes.
absolutely an incredible job. Yeah, kind of give us the walkthrough of kind of, I think you had mentioned it last time we chatted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, just again of
Yeah.
how you
Of
got
course. Yeah. Well, I mean, because if I have to choose what coffee, my favorite coffee beverage will always be a filter coffee. So, which is why I decided to participate in the Brewers Cup. So, in the Brewers Cup, there's two components to it. The one that we most of the time we get to see, which is the open service, where we brew coffee and it comes with a 10 minutes of presentation. And the other part is when you're given a mystery coffee and you just have to do your best and make the best cup of it. So I did this competition 5 times. The first time was in 2017. That was the first time I was like, wow, coffee as a competition. That sounds fun. So I took part. Of course, I did really bad because I know nothing about it. It was really just like for fun. And then because I'm naturally kind of like a competitive kind of person, I do enjoy the feeling of competition. So I was like, okay, let's do it again. And I'm pretty sure I will do well this time. But guess what? The second time I got disqualified for the most silly reason ever. So, like I mentioned earlier on, there's two parts to it. One part is the mystery coffee. So you have to serve a minimum of 150 ml of coffee to the judge. But because I was given a cup that was a 6 ounce, which is approximately about like 180 ml. So from the table that I was bring at, we have to bring it to the judging room. A runner have to bring it to them. So I was concerned that they might spill or be too hard for them to carry. So the customer service part of me inside me tell me that, okay, just make sure that it's easy for them to bring the coffee to the room. So I kind of like under pour so that it's easy for them to bring. But the moment I step up of the room, I was like, oh shit, I think I screwed up because I don't think I hit 150 ml.
Yeah.
150 ml in a 180 ml cup, you have to pour almost close to the brim. But
Mm,
because I was so worried that they might spill or it's challenging for them to bring it to the room, so I decided to pour a little bit less than usual. But guess what? It's all too late then. That's
mm,
why, and I got zero for that component, so I kind of like got disqualified because I didn't serve the minimum amount. But this kind of like motivated me to really want to do well for the next time, which is my third try. And the third try, thank God, thankfully, I did not repeat the same mistake. So I kind of, that was the first time I won the Brewers Cup in Singapore. And I represented Singapore to in Boston in 2019. So I kind of like competed like in the competition back to back 2017, 18, and then 19. So it took me 3 times to kind of like to win my first championship title. But going to Boston was an eye opener for me because for anyone who have not doesn't know too much about Singapore, we are a very tiny island. From one end to the other end, if we were to drive with no traffic jam, maybe 40 plus to 50 minutes, that's how small we are. And we also don't have 4 seasons. So every day it's just sunny or not, it's raining. It's really humid right here. So most of the time we will be sweating.
yeah.
So to me, like I have never experienced 4 seasons. Like I mentioned, I grew up in Singapore. So when we go to Boston, this was the first time I realized how weather and how humidity will actually impact the how you want to approach your coffee. And that's also kind of like, we learned that will also approach how you roast, how you store your coffee, things like that, how you grind your coffee and all like. So it was a great experience for me. And with that part, it kind of like shaped how I want to present my coffee when I am in 2022 when I competed again in Melbourne. Because Melbourne at the point of time was pretty dry in the weather. So with that amount of experience I've gained in Boston did help me really well to get a third place at Worlds. So yeah, this is why I like back to the point like why I really enjoy coffee. Even though like it kind of like killed me in Boston, I was like, why is this not working out like how it should be? But then it taught me something new and it helped me, like I would say, in the conversion in Melbourne. And then coming to third, because in between 2019 and 2022, there was COVID. So there was no competition held. So I can only do it again in 2022 because after being to Boston, I was like, no, I want to do this again. I think I can do it. So yeah. So yes. And then this year, I don't know what's wrong with me. I was like, you know what? Maybe I should try again. So I competed again. And yes, I won again. So I'll be representing Singapore again next year in Jakarta.
Yeah.
So yes. So yeah, that's kind of like my whole competition journey in a very uh short few minutes.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned earlier you love being in a industry where you continue to learn.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously I'm sure you've learned quite a bit in competing, but I don't would there be like one or two things, obviously you mentioned different kind of climates, you know, making you brew differently, but other than that in the competitions, would you say that there was maybe one or two key things that possibly you may have learned or just really enjoyed learning more of, so to speak?
Yeah, I would say honestly the thing that I would say my takeaway from a coffee competition is not just about coffee skills. honestly, I also learned a lot more about myself, like how do I handle stress, the mental stress, whereby like I would say competing again after you won your first championship title can be pretty stressful because you have the all eyes on you kind of feeling. Like when you're out there, it's like if I don't do well, does it mean that like I'm not improved for the past few years? What have I been doing? Am I not keeping myself up to date? Things like that. And also like the amount of like you being able to be very disciplined to set aside time for your competition because we still have our day-to-day job, 9 to 6, things that we need to do. You can only practice it during your so-called your free time, things like that. So yeah, I got to learn how I function better when I'm stressed. What do I do? How should I react? So I guess that's the beauty about competition too. Yeah.
It's a good way of putting it. Yeah. Well, for you being such an at-home and or filter brewer, I've always gone back and forth on I don't know if there is even a debate, so to speak, but kind of trying to look at acidity and sweetness, and then also kind of bitterness also, and kind of how they interact with each other. And I've always wondered, should we shoot for acidity in our brews or sweetness, or kind of a combination of the both, and that balances out with the bitterness. I don't know fully, and so and for people brewing at home, what is your take? Do you? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess whether it's for people who brews at home or even for myself, like how I would approach a cup of coffee, it's always about seeking balance. Because we must understand first thing first, we enjoy a cup of coffee over 30 to 40 minutes. You want to make sure that the cup of coffee is tasty not only on your first sip, but even until your last sip. And the key to this is to make sure that your coffee tastes balanced. So we want to seek balance between both acidity and sweetness and including bitterness. So say for example, if a coffee is really vibrant, but then there's no sweetness to support it, it's going to taste really sharp as the coffee cools, which happen pretty often sometimes in your wash coffee. So, but if you can increase sweetness, it would help to balance up the coffee throughout the entire journey. And sweetness usually comes with body. Just imagine drinking your boba tea at 0% sugar versus 100%. Or another good way would be why would why do we enjoy lemonade but not lemon juice? Because lemon juice is just pure sour, but lemonade there's sugar in it. So it kind of like helps to boost the body, makes the mouth feel, the sweetness, everything better. So that's how you will want to enjoy your coffee as well. So you want to seek a balance between both acidity and sweetness. Of course, the bitterness, you want to minimize it as little as possible. But once you have both acidity and sweetness, eventually it can help to cover the to muffle the bitterness in the cup.
Hmm.
So yeah, you can't get rid of bitterness in coffee completely, no matter how good your brew is, whatsoever. Even if you are using a low caffeine varietal like Lorena, there will still be bitterness. But
Mhm.
I guess it's about how you want to balance your cup for acidity and sweetness. So that's what I would say a key to a good cup of coffee. So yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Fantastic answer. I very much agree, for what it's worth, on having a cup of coffee that you can enjoy from start to finish is kind of always
Yeah.
something that I've been taught. And so, anytime we're cupping coffees, or, drinking a pour over, or even an espresso, if we come back to it and it's cold and it still tastes good, that's like, all right, like we've done
Yeah.
it. It's
Yes.
good. Yeah. And so I think that's a very poignant thought. Is sometimes, yeah, you can get something really good up front, but then the back end of a coffee and or as it cools, it dissipates and or kind of disappears. And so I think that's a fantastic way of just kind of saying, man, we really want to have a good cup of coffee from start to finish. And
Mm.
how do we make that happen, not neglecting sweetness or acidity, just doing both? And yeah, I think that's kind of a neat thing, to be quite honest, or just a good answer, so to speak. But yeah, so kind of going back to all these amazing producers and people that you all have met, how did Ame and or you kind of get to the point where you're sourcing from so many wonderful places, like, I mean, that doesn't happen overnight. How did you, that's, yeah.
Yeah. I guess like for us, I mean, for now, we still do both. So both, I mean, like we do direct trade. Like, I mean, for like Cafe Granja, it's a direct trade. And then also like the El Salvador and Santa Monica actually comes from a trader, Macanta. So it really, why are we still getting both? I guess for people like big farms, big names like Cafe Granja, they have the resources, they have the plans as to how they can prepare all the export permit, the license, and etc. They have the resources, which is why they also can produce like really great coffees. But that doesn't mean that like smallholder farmers they can't. But unfortunately, some of them they do not have the financial resources or they do not have the knowledge, which is why people like our green trader plays a very important role. They help to make all this coffee accessible to roasters like us, which is why to date we are still getting both from traders as well as from direct. Because for big names, it's easy to do direct, the permit, the license, everything is easily done. We don't have to worry about it. But for like smallholder farmers, we still need the traders. So which is why we do both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. I guess at the end of the day, it boils down to the quality. Does the cup taste good? Is there a good story to tell? Is there something that we want to share? So that's how we kind of like curate our options for our coffee.
yeah. Well, so kind of, in terms of that, I mean, again, coming from someone who, I don't do green buying, I don't do this. Do you even, to an extent, seek out different varieties or origins where you're just interested in, or, does it really kind of come through just, people you've met? And yeah, I don't know, just like how does that translate to how you guys do it, so to speak?
But I guess it's a mixture of everything, I would say. Of course, the people that we've met sometimes when we meet at like the coffee events or coffee show, or we happen to, I don't know, actually come by a cupping session from someone, someone hosted a cupping and then we happen to come by and it tasted great. Then we want to find our way to like, to get our hands on these coffees. And then of course we have your regular cupping session hosted by the traders or like um copies that's hosted by the producers, things like that. So that's how we kind of like, get access to all these coffees. We don't specifically look for a varietal or a particular origin. I would say origin is more heavily dependent on the seasonality of the year, when is the harvest, things like that. But I would say not so much on varietal, but more on the taste profile. Which is why it ties back to like how we want to present our coffee information to our customers. The taste or like the quality, it's more heavily important than the rest of the factor. But I guess for our role as a coffee professional would then to understand, is it because of the varietal or the processing that actually helps to contribute that particular flavor profile? And I think with consumers that we kind of like know that they are more into all this technical information, we have a little bit more to share with them. But for our consumers who just join us into this specialty, family would be more of like, this is how it tastes like, it's tasty, things like that. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Because it's, same thing. We have, customers come in and they're just like, I just want a chocolatey coffee. Like, give me nuts.
Yes.
It's like, great. But yeah, sometimes there's someone who comes in and they're looking for something, just a little bit more interesting. And I think I had mentioned to you, we I don't know how, but we just have a few customers that will spend quite a bit of money on coffee. And yeah, I'm thinking of one right now who, she's actually one of our subscribers, and she came in probably a couple weeks ago and bought like a Finca Milan,
Oh,
um
finger melon.
a Finca Milan that was like $75, and bought a Jansen geisha for like 65, and just like one of those, just like just racked up the coffees and was just like,
Mm.
what's the best stuff? And it was like, all right, okay, I'll tell you, just know it costs a lot. And she's
Yeah.
like, that's okay, I don't, this is what I want to spend my money on. I'm done. Well, kind of coming to the end, I think I asked you this last time also, because it's I love asking people this in the industry. Throughout your years, you've been in the industry so long. What are or not what, but who are some of the people or companies, whether it's producers, roasters, baristas, that you continue to look up to and you draw inspiration from? Yeah.
Well, there's two that like there's these two coffee idols that I look up to. One is Lex Welker from Amsterdam. He runs the company Frightheads.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, he's like my coffee idol. I don't know, he's funny. He roasts good coffee. He also brew good coffee. Well, clearly he does very well in both brewers and baristas. So, I was so excited because he was always doing barista competition. But then the year that I went Melbourne, I don't know why he decided that he wanted to do brewers and he won. So the feeling of like, being able to compete side by side with your coffee idol was like, oh, it's one of the best feeling that I'll never forget in my entire life. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's
So yes. So he's someone that I look up to a lot, whether is it in terms of his company branding or the coffee he roasts, they serve, the curation, how they put it across. They also want to make coffee really fun. They use a lot of like memes and funny stuff on Instagram to make coffee very approachable. And he does a lot of funny videos, like silly ones. I enjoy those a lot. So yes, I think the first time I came across was in Dublin. That was the first time I came across Lex and also the brand Frightheads. Yeah, when he competed. And you know what? He's also a fan of like Cafe Granha. He competed with Cafe Granha as well. So
you.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So when I visited Cafe Granha, we all get to plant our own coffee tree.
Mhm.
So I had mine planted, and I know he planted his as well. So I started looking around for like, where's this coffee tree? So yes, I'm 100% fangirl of Lex Renaka. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. I don't think he knows. Everyone around me knows, but I don't think he knows. So, there was once, like, when I realized that there was one day I was at home and I screamed, I was like, oh my God. And like, someone asked me, what happened? Is it something happened? And I was like, no, Lex Renaka follow me on Instagram. I was like, oh my God. So, yes. So that's one of my first coffee idol. And then the second one is Charles Babinski. He's from US.
Okay.
Charles Babinski.
Who is it?
I think he used to run this coffee brand called Go Get Them Tiger in LA.
Yes.
Yes, Charles Babinski. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I think I haven't got to see him, or he hasn't been very active only until very recently. I think he just opened a shop in Sydney. So I'm looking forward to visit his shop. So yes, when I was in Boston, I was like, I don't care. I'm in US. I need to go to LA. I know it's on the other side because I don't know when I will get to go to US again in my life. So I flew to LA just to go to his shop. I don't know. I'm a fangirl. So yeah.
Well,
So
so I
yes.
I have to ask, because I don't remember how much we've chatted, but I started my coffee career in LA. And so when you went to a shop, what did you think? Did you? Yeah, just I'm so intrigued. Yeah.
I went to two coffee shops.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say it's a very neighborhood kind of a coffee shop. I can't remember where exactly the location is. One was close to Tatin, and then the other one was more like a neighborhood shop. It's small, it's easy, it's fast free. It's nothing like fancy, but you get good coffee. And I think that's what I want for and or that's my definition of a good coffee shop. It shouldn't be something that's too fancy, too like not like I would say not approachable. It's just something easy.
Yeah.
Any coffee they order, it doesn't have to be out of the world, but something comforting. That's what I look for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's too neat, actually. Oh, that's so random. I'm not gonna. I would have never thought that those two people would be the people that, I don't know, you would say. So I think that's actually too neat. I to be honest, I don't know much about either. So that's kind of just, I don't know. It's neat to hear that these two people, maybe I should be on the lookout for. I'm dying. But yeah, I mean, to be quite honest, I think we're at a great place. I think we've spent a perfect amount of time just chatting about everything. I mean, is there anything that you would like to share? Just kind of just. briefly, or anything else that you'd like to mention to people who happen to be watching this wherever they are in the world?
Well, I guess like sometimes a good cup of coffee doesn't have to be too complicated. Yes, it's great that we have data, we have weighing scales and everything to help us to measure. But if we sometimes just want to enjoy a good cup of coffee at home, it doesn't have to be too complicated. Just enjoy the cup as how it should be. We don't have to be so nitpicky. Just remember that it's a appreciation and it's an enjoying process. It's not a something that is like a like a size project or something like that. Yeah, otherwise coffee would lose its beauty, I feel. So yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, man, Alicia, this has been absolutely amazing. Like I mentioned, I I will personally probably be reaching out to you in a week or two to look at some more coffees. To be honest, I'm very excited.
Oh, thank you.
We're
Yeah,
very
I mean
yeah
like yeah, I want to say thank you too. I mean like you give me an opportunity, to talk nonstop. I'm happy to share anything about Homeground, about coffee. Yeah, we can just go on and on for a long time, I'm sure.
I'm so glad to hear. Yeah, thank you so much for just absolutely everything. I'm very much anxious to get some more tasty coffee in the door, and yeah, I have an amazing rest of your day, and thanks again. Yeah,
All right. And you too, David. Have a good night.
yeah, bye.
Bye bye.